Hey, howdy, and a big welcome back to Clemhawks, folks. I'm Yak, ready to take you through another edition of some Minnesota Wild discussion here on the channel this morning. And let me tell you, you know what? Yesterday, as you see, I'm in my jersey, a big day of playing ball out in plus 35-degree weather. Being from Canada, that's how we rate our weather up here, is by Celsius, not Fahrenheit, if you're tuning in from the States. However, my friends, you know what? It was a big day for the Minnesota Wild as well. They signed Liam Ohgren to a 3-year entry level deal. Yes, he did. He got his entry level deal following development camp. So, not bad going. This kind of follows a lot of trends here we've seen over the past week from development camp. Usually one or two guys on every team so far this week has gotten an entry level deal based on his performance at development camp, right? And that's just kind of par for the course. And obviously, too, even if there weren't development camps, Liam Ohgren would have been a very popular choice to give him his rookie entry level deal just simply because of where he was drafted and what you can do with a guy like that come actual main camp, come the prospects games, kind of like that. He's a guy that, I guess, how do you say this, right? You just drafted him high in 2022. He's a guy that puts seats in the butts in training camp, puts seats in the butts during your development prospects tournament that so many teams are now involved in here in these mini training camps for the prospects before actual training camp comes up, right? It's kind of that one-stop shop for everybody under 25, generally speaking, before they get split up to go to AHL training camp or remain and stay on for main camp with the NHL team. And that's kind of where Liam Ohgren finds himself, as this should pretty much guarantee that he's over here for training camp at some point, unless there's been something said by Bill Guerin in an interview that I just don't have access to that indicates he's staying in Sweden or something come this fall. But again, a guy who, right, you have high hopes for. So now he gets his entry level deal and he gets to stick around hopefully for a little bit during main camp, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you know what, you got to move forward and see him take his next steps in his development before he ends up in a lineup somewhere in the next year or two or three. I honestly don't fully know the projection for Liam Ohgren, but that's the best part about 18-year-old hockey players drafted high in an NHL entry draft. They can surprise you. So that's Liam Ohgren. Now the other side too here is I just took a look at this, and Cap Friendly kind of maps it out, right? If you've never used capfriendly.com, it's the salary cap kind of best usage website for everything salary cap in the NHL. And of course, there's also Puckpedia. I'm a big fan of Cap Friendly, however. And just looking at it this morning, the Minnesota Wild have $4.3 million in cap space. And when you equate that out, signing up two more guys to be on the NHL roster at the forward position, you're probably looking at about 2.8 to $2.2 million in free cap space. So I know I put out a video the other day saying the Minnesota Wild's offseason is pretty much, if not already done. However, honestly, right, I did leave the caveat of a trade in there somewhere, and that was why Matt Dumba was in the big thumbnail picture. However, if you look at it here too, is with 2.2 to 2.8 million dollars in cap space, it's not necessarily about going out and getting a big fish. And obviously, the Minnesota Wild went and got their depth pieces they were looking for on day one. But now you can kind of go out there, and if somebody's hanging around at the end of free agency, right, we're talking August 25th to about September 1st, and you want to sign three or four guys to PTOs, and you want to keep that room to have a couple guys at camp in case they earn a contract, well, that's a possibility that you could run there too, because 2.2, even if you have to give them each $900,000 deals, that gets you two guys coming in on PTOs, off of PTOs, and onto a contract by the end of main camp. And that could be exactly the route Bill Guerin goes with this Minnesota Wild group, because, right, the cap space is limited, and you're looking for budget guys that are going to have a big impact on your team this season. Obviously, the Minnesota Wild coming off of a pretty fun season this year, but you'd like to build off that, but just handcuffed by 14 or some $1 million in dead cap space from Parise and Suter, well, that leaves you in tight quarters where you got to really figure out how to get your best bang for your buck. And Bill Guerin, right, like I said, signed depth pieces. None of those guys are really going to be guys that really add a lot to your NHL roster. Nick Patan, more than likely the one that does the most there. However, for the Minnesota Wild right now, the biggest get would be just adding someone who's sneaky to score 15 goals, right? Sneaky scores 15 goals, doesn't cost you offensively or defensively other than that, and your way you go with having a budget guy score you 15 goals and of course add a steady Eddie well-paced game to your lineup. That's all it comes down to if you're the Minnesota Wild is right now, right here. Absolutely. You got to look for the budget deals, and whether that comes right here in the next 2 weeks or so before we enter August, or whether that comes at the end of August when you are signing PTOs and looking for guys like that because there's still a couple guys available, that's kind of where you determine it. But right now, as we're sitting, it's a fun, good time to just kind of relax, enjoy. Like I said, I've been playing ball. That's why I missed the Liam Ohgren signing yesterday. But that's where we find ourselves, and I just wanted to give you a quick update. So I'm Yak. This is Clem Hawks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am up on out of here.